what would your response be to the business owner that says, Sam, great job motivating your troops. It doesn't correlate to mine. If you were in my shoes, how would you motivate and engage a workforce of widget manufacturers?
Well, let's pick a really extreme example. Let's say we're really just talking about basic assembly line manufacturing. In the 90s, Toyota's Kaizen manufacturing philosophy completely upended conventional thinking about how mass production should work. And the idea behind Kaizen philosophy in manufacturing then, and this is when Toyota came from basically domestic obscurity and completely displaced American manufacturing of automobiles in the 80s and 90s, and others like them, other offshore manufacturers or others with just more sophisticated manufacturing relationships between like line workers and management. And the theory of Kaizen has been famously documented. This is a repeat for everyone actually in the world of the question you just asked is, what if you ask every single person touching every part of production what could be done better, and you challenge them and incentivize them to implement it because it means something for the whole team? And what happens is you start to get a really good feedback loop, and you start to find competitive advantages everywhere, and you start to outcompete people. And when you do that, there's also a culture of teamwork and celebration and a degree of selflessness, but also a degree of self-celebration when you contribute to the betterment of the team. That becomes more powerful than just the pure skill of doing the job, which is also rewarding in its own way. And that enables people to do really impossible things. So I'll give you an example. A company that's sometimes in the news, but not by name. There's a nearshore manufacturer of automobile chassis in Monterrey, Mexico, which is just over the border of, basically Texas, kind of near San Antonio. And they do a lot of the pre-manufacturing before vehicles come to the United States to be manufactured. And as you can imagine, manufacturing can sometimes be a low margin business compared to something like software as a service sales, my business, right? And so you can't always have the luxury of making choices that could impact the bottom line. And sometimes there are events that require teamwork in order to power through. And so in this case, this manufacturer of vehicle chassis, that was inspired by Kaizen in the 80s and 90s, adopted it in Mexico, was able to find a way to produce respirators during COVID alongside their production of truck chassis in order to make sure that enough of the workforce and families in their city, where they were a big employer, were able to survive the pandemic and contribute to the growth of those communities and economies. That restored the faith in people buying from them, people working for them, et cetera. And if you compare that to their counterparts in the US, right now there's a crisis of retaining hourly workers. After the pandemic, everybody's reevaluating household economics about, should I be commuting to work? Should I be working overtime? Do I believe in the company I'm working for? Do I believe in the future of this industry? Could I do more on my own as an entrepreneur? Do I think that I could get upskilled or find a management role if I stayed here? And you're seeing in many sectors greater than 50% churn of employees within 2 years in hourly roles. It's becoming increasingly hard to retain and upskill and train and incentivize those people. And if you don't have a sense of belonging to the team, then your odds amazingly diminish. But if you do have a sense of belonging and a sense of the greater picture that the company can achieve due to your support of the company, then you have the ability to retain employees, reduce the recruiting costs associated with finding and retraining new employees, and you can have a very competitive business in a globalized economy. But not if you like American dream and repatriating jobs is part of it, having a climate where we can make manufacturing a source of strength for us is important. But it doesn't matter how many economic incentives the government throws at the big picture of that equation. If companies can't translate the objectives to the team in a way that the team feels a shared goal and like everyone's incentives are aligned, then it won't be possible to compete at the velocity of firms that have figured out a way to do that in a lower cost environment. So we just bridged a pretty wide gap of talking about ecosystems of technology online across sectors to talking about pragmatic considerations of retention of hourly employees in manufacturing roles. But there's some lessons that really are universal, and giving everybody a sense of purpose in their work and celebrating everyone for their individual contributions is an essential part of a culture of effective production, whatever that production of widgets may be.
Very, very helpful answer. I love how you bridge the gap between what you're doing and the concepts of assembly line manufacturing, hourly worker retention, and whatnot. So very, very insightful answer. Thank you.